I got it right here. I want to take it right out. Right here.
It said you've been butchered.
No, we're not.
Give that one a jump. You're going to take this after I do roll call. You go right here. Excuse myself. I'm going to sit right down there. I'm going to do it right out.
Right? It might be tonight. We might get daggers and everything thrown at us. Who knows?
So we have to read all that into John. We have to read all that in the record, do we?
So John, when is the
Update?
Right here.
We got to recuse ourselves, right?
Yeah, you guys do.
That's on the mill thing.
This is the middle of the guys.
So why did you do that in the end? So it snuck right off us back after. Why did you do it in the end?
That's the way they place it on the agenda.
Hey, you good?
Mr. Chuck.
Where's the flag?
It might have moved.
He's got it? Scotty's got it. Oh, he's got it.
Good to go. Ready there, Charles?
Ready?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Whoopsie. You take it from there. Today is November 19, 2018, and we're going to call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. Madam Clerk.
Councilman Collins.
Present.
Councilman Izzi.
Present.
Councilman Campbell.
Present.
Councilman D'Agostino.
Present.
Councilwoman Frederickson. Present. Council Vice President Payette.
Present.
And Council President McCoy.
President, it's going to be three of us that are going to recuse ourselves here. Myself, Mr. Collins, and Mr. Izzi.
It's on the mill.
All right, this is regarding the Hope Mill, and this is just an update. We put it on here as possible executive session, but there's no reason we have to put this in executive session. We're just going to have you give us an update of what's going on with the mill.
Absolutely. Again, no reason for executive session. I just want to give you some facts and some instances to update the council as to what has taken place since our last meeting. As you know, on November 2nd, 2018, I appeared before you, gave a bit of a recitation as to the issues before the court. If you recall, Alden Anderson, who represents the receiver, was here as well, and one of the concerns that Alden raised to the council, both by way of correspondence and his oral discussion to the council, was that there is an existing stay that's in place concerning the property as a result of the receivership. So out of an abundance of caution and already having known that Alden was going to file a motion to contempt and hold us in contempt if we tried to appeal it, I felt that the best thing to do was to file an emergency motion to lift the stay to permit the town to go forward and file a complaint, which I did immediately on Monday, November 5th. At that time, the matter was heard by Justice Stern. He is the justice who's assigned the case. Unfortunately, he could not nor would he hear the case because the matter had been transferred to the Supreme Court. Although there's two separate issues that are before the Supreme Court, the way the procedure works is that the entire case gets undocketed in the Superior Court and gets docketed in the Supreme Court, where only the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction. So we then, on the 5th, filed an emergency motion with the Supreme Court. That was heard on the 7th, the day after the election. And the justice requested some additional filings and then referred it to the full Supreme Court on November 15th. They did have a conference this past Wednesday, and in fact we got a decision today, an order from the Supreme Court remanding the case back to the Superior Court. So the Supreme Court decided not to hear the stay, not to get involved in the case, if you will, but decided to remand it back to Judge Stern to have Justice Stern make a decision with regards to the stay. We've already filed a complaint, and the purpose for filing the complaint is to ensure timeliness of the appeal, because one of the issues that we didn't want to run into is having the inability, or I should say the inability to appeal because of lapse of the time. It's 20 days from the issuance of the approval. Fortunately, in the papers that we received from the receiver, they have essentially consented to the fact that the appeal is premature because there's no written decision yet from the planning board, and as of today, I still have not seen a written decision or a recorded decision. I've got copies of our pleadings. I've got copies of the order from the Supreme Court. I have copies of the initial emergency motion that we filed, a supplemental motion that we filed, which has the complaint. The complaint's already prepared to be filed, and then I have the receiver's response to that complaint. I have 2 copies which I can give to the clerk and have the clerk hand out or make additional copies. So if I can approach.
Yes, please.
Willing to entertain any questions that council members may have or any issues or concerns.
Mr. D'Agostino? Nothing? Brenda? Okay, I guess we're all set, sir.
All right, so then the next step in the process is to file again with the Superior Court, Justice Stern, to get a hearing date from the justice and to lift the stay. I think procedurally it's the best thing to do. It protects the town from any claims of the town acting in contempt of the orders. Unfortunately, as you probably know, you've been living with this for quite some time. This is a very convoluted case. It has a multitude of different layers and an extreme amount of orders, and those orders are court orders, and we have to, it's like going through a minefield. You have to be careful of what mine you're going to hit and when you're going to hit it. So our job is to navigate through that, to minimize the exposure the town has, and to maximize our ability to present our case ultimately. So with that, I thank you. If there's any questions, the clerk has my contact information, and I'm more than happy to speak to any one of you individually, although I can't speak to you more than 3 at a time.
So the planning board didn't file proper paperwork yet?
No, I have not seen the decision yet, no.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini.
Okay.
All right, so there'll be no action to take on number 4. That was just an update from Mr. Mancini. Chuck, John, Nick.
Public hearing. I'm going to take this in order. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to take this agenda out of order. Had a request from Nade's attorney that he had a prior commitment. He wants to get out of here as soon as possible, so I want to accommodate that. So there'll be a motion to take it out of the agenda, out, move under discussion and/or action 12G right to the front. Motion to support that.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so let me get right to it. Amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Scituate and National Association of Government Employees, Local Rhode Island 42, regarding accretion of the Animal Control Director and Animal Control Officer position into the NAGE bargaining unit. Is there a motion to accept that?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. You're all set, Paul. Motion to open public hearing?
So moved. Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion to open council as the liquor licensing board.
So moved.
Go ahead, Nick. You check out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it is now open. So there'll be a motion to support A through G. It'll be A through G.
These are just renewals.
Yeah, these are renewals, yeah.
Yeah, move,
Second.
move approval.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. The second one would be Class BBL transfer from NIJ for premises known as Speranza Pizza, Hope Furnace Road, 4 Hope Furnace Road, Rhode Island, to Farm to Folk Incorporated for premises known as Raffono's Pizzeria at 4 Hope Furnace Road.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
Can this be subject to, the delinquencies being paid up?
They're all paid.
It's all paid up, yes. All right, thank you. It was all taken care of this afternoon. It was just a little bit of a technical glitch. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Motions to close council as a licensing board.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, also under, we all set? Okay, under public hearing still open, so B would be proposed change of zone, Assessors Plat 32 in Lot 8, Andrew Catanzaro, 368 Danielson Pike, change from RR 120 to Business General. A motion to support that.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes. Motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Nick? Does anybody have any conflict on these minutes?
Yeah, I do on the special council meeting, I have to abstain,
Which one?
25th.
25th?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll do them one at a time. Motion to approve October 18, 2018 regular council minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Special Town Council, October 25th, 2018, Mr. Collins out.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Special Town Council, November 2nd, 2018.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have a motion to support or to approve all of the department head reports as submitted.
Second.
Second.
I just have a question for the chief. Just curious, on the status of the new building, when will we get a chance to take a look at it?
Can you go again, Councilman Purge?
When, on the status of the new building, when will we get a chance to take a look at it?
Is that in your report?
The status of the building? No, it's not in the
All right, so we'll
report.
talk about that at closed session. It's got nothing to do with his report. I'll strike that, add community participation. Okay. Thank you, sir.
I got a question. Not for you, Chief. Ted. Ted, do you have your audit or a statement of the accounts in your department for this meeting?
You have an email from me. The audit will be presented in December. We're still under extension. There is one pending issue that the auditor is resolving. Our work has been done. Our delays have been related to the reporting of our portion of WB and also the state portal, which we're required to be on, and that's an integral part of the audit, a couple of pages in the audit. So draft is completed. It should be finished within the next few days, those last items. In fact, WB is resolved.
But do you have a treasurer's report? Yes, about...
Treasurer's report is in here, as I'd indicated to you. You've been receiving that for 18 months. It's the year-to-date budget to actual report. If you want an executive summary moving forward, I'd be delighted to prepare an executive summary and provide it to you.
Well, do you have any issues, concerns, or anything that you should be putting in a report?
The only concerns I have is, as I noted in an email to you regarding some of the expenditures on the police department, bids that are being approved by the council appropriately are being submitted, but in addition to that, some additional invoices for similar vendors, same vendors, are being forwarded to the Treasurer's Office for payment. I would hope that those bills would be brought back to the council for approval in the form of a change order.
Okay, and one other question. We put on hold bills last month for the SPP.
Yes.
Were those bills paid?
Yes, they were.
Why were they paid when they weren't vetted out?
The bills were reviewed by Karen and I provided or made available to John all of the information that I thought he was requiring. I'm not going to jeopardize that grant money. You can hold me accountable, but as far as I'm concerned, the vendors provided the services. I released the checks. I'm unaware of any instance where Mrs. McCormick has been told to stop work. I can't see vendors being asked to provide services for the community, and we're not going to pay for them.
All right, but do you know that we have minutes that Mrs. McCormick is no longer running that program?
I was unaware of that.
All right. So you made it your decision to pay these bills without...
I made my decision to pay any bills that had been accrued up to the point of that last meeting.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
I have a couple.
Yes.
All right. Just one more. I want to build off Mr. Amaral. Knowing that the council had directed non-payment, you paid them anyways. Simple yes, simple no.
I said that, answered that.
You did that against
I
the
did.
council? Okay.
As town treasurer, I felt I had the authority to release those checks.
Okay, that's fine. I just want that on the record. So I spoke to Karen today briefly, and I had some questions in reference to this year's audit.
Yes.
And Ms. Beatty advised me that there was a new law that was implemented in 2017. Okay?
That's correct.
Where the General Auditor General is asking for some additional clarity and transparency?
I believe you're referring to our putting information on the portal.
Karen? That's correct? You told me this afternoon it was something that was passed by the General Assembly in 2017? And we just heard about it this afternoon?
No, we did not just hear about it. That's
we
not
haven't.
I beg your pardon?
We haven't.
Who
Council
hasn't?
has not.
You hasn't? You
The
haven't?
council has not, no.
I looked at that as a normal course of the audit engagement. We constantly, on an annual basis, have additional requirements that the Auditor General or the state will require. The portal is just a matter of us providing information from our audit on the portal, and then that will be reflected in our audit, and people will be able to go to the
So
portal.
it resulted in a delay, according to Karen today.
It resulted in a delay because the information from our audit, it's the first time we've done it. You've got new staff at the school department, as well as other issues going on with the state, and it's an administrative issue. It's not a major issue.
It's an issue that caused a delay that the council should have been aware of.
No, it's one of the delays, and I would have reported that today.
No problem, I just wanted it on record.
But the other delay was WB. And I'll be honest with you, these delays are compounded by the fact that our fiscal year is March 31st.
Didn't have that last year, Ted.
I beg your pardon?
Thank you so much.
I didn't hear the...
I said we didn't have this last year,
Didn't have what last year?
this delay.
I believe we had an extension request last year.
According to our conversation today.
I'll check my notes, but I thought we had a
I think the
brief...
notes would be between Karen and I, not you.
I beg your
Karen and I
pardon?
had this conversation today.
Why don't you be quiet back there?
Yeah, point of order.
Absolutely. But more importantly, you have to understand, the Auditor General scrutinizes these requests for extensions very, very closely. We're always with full compliance with any indications from the Auditor General that we need to move quickly or we need to delay. In last year, I recall that the Auditor General hadn't finished their audit of MERS, and that resulted in a delay on us, I believe. I'll verify that, though.
Thank you. there a motion to accept all these abatements and additions as advertised?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that passes. Victualling licenses. Would they be, Brenda, do you have to recuse? Nick, do you have to recuse yourself? The motion to support all of these as advertised in one bulk motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. We're all set? Yeah. We can do that separate. Don't have anything to do with that. Here we have one more, the motion to support private investigator John McDermott, 6 Fire Drive.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Resignation, Carol Costa, Housing Authority. She asked me to make this crystal clear that she submitted as of May 2017. I did not put this out there in a desperate attempt to try to keep her on that housing board. We lost a good person for whatever reason. So she wanted me to put that on the record. So the motion is support it.
So, I'll second that.
Way to do.
A and B.
Well, we have, one of them separate?
No, it doesn't matter, yeah, so
Okay,
let's do them separate.
yeah. So we got a motion and a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Motion, Mr. D'Agostino, I second it.
Anyone opposed? That passes.
Cara Fee.
Motion to accept Cara Fee's resignation from the housing.
I make a motion to accept with regret.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Appointments, there are none. Discussion and/or action concerning terms and conditions of an employment contract for Senior Service Director Deena L.U. The motion to support that contract as submitted.
So moved. I'll move approval, Scott, but I just got to put something on the record. On page 3, it will only read where the employee agrees for sick accrued as indicated by the Town of Scituate's employee manual. So there was some additional language, but I'm going to strike it from the contract. Again, it's page 3. She'll only receive what any other employee in the employee manual handbook receives. That's on page 3. A, and then D, same thing. Employee shall be paid vacation in accordance with the town manual. And then on page 5, number 12B, this is for any training and whatnot will not take effect until a budget is approved in April of 2019. So with that said, I make a motion, as I just indicated on the record, for approval. Is there a second?
Second. You want to go on record, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, first of all, it's nothing against our Senior Services Director. I think from what I've been hearing like that, she's been doing a great job. What the problem I have is 2 years ago when I was the president of the council, at your request, because you said we were a lame duck council,
Because we were what? I didn't hear that.
you said at council at the time, with me as the president, we were lame ducks. And you requested that we didn't make appointments or contracts or anything for the future. Based on that, I'd request you did the same thing, because I want to go on record that there is a Supreme Court decision that was opinioned by Judge Callahan that this is a governmental action. This is not a priority action, and there's a good chance this could be overturned in court, because you're only allowed to give a term of contract, I believe, up until your term expires, which is December 31st. And I'm speaking as a councilman right now and a councilor-elect. So I'm requesting that you leave this till next year. You know, you asked me last time, we only made the appointments that was supposed to be done in November and December. We didn't make any new appointments. We didn't make any new contracts. And I'm just going on record because If you give this, I feel that it's improper, and I want to be on record for it.
Yeah, so we don't, I think we discussed this 2-year deal throughout this entire term, and we couldn't find anything concrete. And you just had mentioned, Mr. Collins, that you believe. So we really don't know what it is.
No, I don't believe. I have a copy of it. I tried sending it to Wyatt, the solicitor's office.
When did you send that?
Like that, huh?
When did you send it to him?
I got it yesterday, and I talked to him today, and I tried sending it. I just tried sending it a little while ago. I don't know if you got it or not.
Just before the meeting?
If I
Okay.
sent it to you earlier, too.
Thank you,
Well,
thank you.
You know what? If you want to do it,
Thank you.
it's a good chance you're going to be spending taxpayers'
She's a good
money.
employee, she does an outstanding job. Are you good with her?
What?
Are you okay with her performance? She's doing an unbelievable job.
I am.
Okay.
I just said, it's nothing to do with her performance. I've heard she's been doing well.
Okay, so.
But I'm
thank you
just
so
stating the
much.
fact that I'm going on record that this is improper, because I have a court decision from the Supreme Court. If Mr. Finnegan was here, and a couple other people, they would vouch for that.
Yeah, I think that something should have been submitted a few days back, right?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to go on record. The case he's citing, it talks about governmental versus proprietary functions. But again, there's not any case law on whether a senior services director, as the department is currently constituted in the services that it currently gives, there's not a judicial decision on whether her job would be a proprietary or governmental function. That ultimately could be decided by the court, but those cases are very fact-specific to particular circumstances. The case Mr. Collins is citing, I only received at 7:05 today, and Mr. Collins, we did talk around 6 o'clock this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to fully read it, but that line of cases, that's generally the analysis. But there is not a court decision on whether the senior services director, in the particular facts of her function in this town, whether that would be deemed proprietary or governmental. And the importance of that is that on governmental functions, that common law rule would apply, but on a proprietary function, even though it's performed by a town employee, then that rule would not apply.
Well, we already had a motion.
We already have a motion and a second on the floor here. We're in discussion. So thank you, Mr. Brochu. Collins, Mr. Collins, thank you for what you wanted to put on record. Anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
I have worked with Deena a little bit, and I think she is doing a good job as far as the Senate goes. I know there was a rededication for the building, which tells me there's a new dynamic up there. Does Deena have an up-to-date job description of what that's going to entail? Because I understand that it's going to be a multi-purpose facility, not just a senior services center anymore. Well, I just think that that's something that we should clarify before we offer her a contract.
That's something that will be presented next month. It's not on the agenda, just this contract is. So I would, at this particular time, due to the structure of the agenda and the advertisement of it, that there's nothing for her to go on record with. She's not prepared for it at this time. We're here to discuss this contract and approval or denial of it. So that's my position on that. So.
Okay, I believe it's putting the cart before the horse, though.
Okay. Statement. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote on this one.
Councilman Izzi.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Nay.
Councilwoman Frederickson.
Nay.
Councilman D'Agostino.
Nay.
Councilman Amaral.
Aye.
Council Vice President Council Vice President Payette.
Aye.
And Council President Mahoney.
Aye, motion passes. So let's move to the next one. Possible approval of agreement with Rockwood Realty, LLC, and J.R. Vinago Corporation concerning, improvements and upgrades to Burlingame Bridge on Hope Furnace Road. This was approved a couple months back. All this is an agreement here outlining the construction and the funds that will be injected into this by Rockwood and Mr. Vinago. So the motion to support this as advertised?
Move approval.
Okay, I want to add some language to that motion that this project begin. I want to talk about it before we have a motion and second on the floor here. Briefly, I received from Karen yesterday, or maybe, I think it was last week, Karen, the bills from the school department. Some serious money, $7,300. 73, 6604, 7,031, and these are for routes that the bus had to take around this bridge. There's a report on record that indicates that that bridge is in poor to critical condition, has been for a while, kind of runs concurrent with most of the town's buildings that we put together over the last 2 years. So with that said, I wanted that to be out there, and I was handed some minutes by Karen Beatty, and this is in reference to a school committee meeting, August 7, 2018. Mr. LaPlante spoke about the weight limit on the bridge. Mr. Diaz said she reached out to myself and told her that we would pay for the extra costs for the bus. Mr. LaPlante explained that this adds an extra 90 minutes for the ride for some students. The council reimbursed the school department. I did, in fact, tell Carolyn Diaz that I would bring this to the council. So this is not on the agenda for approval for tonight, but it will be for next month. So that's the condition that that bridge is currently in. So I want that to be on the record. In additional language I'd like to see on the record, to the motion would be that this bridge go under construction as soon as possible before Mother Nature rolls in here, so we can get our emergency vehicles, school buses, and everything over that bridge in a safe manner. Is that acceptable to the motion?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so let's open this up to a council discussion.
I'd like to go on record as far as, there again, I feel it's a government action. It's up to the government to repair roads, pave roads, fix bridges. It's not up to the private sector like that. This should be left up to the new council. There again, I respected your wishes last time when you said we were a lame duck council. You are a member of a lame duck council now. Being it's governmental action like that, and there is a Supreme Court decision, I differ what the solicitor said on it, okay? I want to go on record as far as that. I also went on record before, and I'm going on record now, like that. When the new council takes over, I, as a councilman, are going to make a motion. I don't know how the other council people are going to feel or what they're going to do, but I'm going to pursue to institute a full no-through trucking on there, because there was like 200 people here the meeting that this went through. So I want to be on record for that. These people want no-through trucking down there. So what you're saying, you're worried about what it's costing for our buses, but you're not worried when this ends up in federal court and costs the town $100,000 or more. So I don't get that. But I want to be on record so we're clear that this is what I'm going to do next month after the new council's sworn in. So I'm asking you again to respect my wishes like I did yours and table this stuff, not pass it.
Is this a second Supreme Court decision?
It's the same court decision.
And you say that, just a couple questions. Can I ask just a couple, Wyatt, before we go?
Sure, I just wanted to clarify one thing. Mr. Collins said he disagreed with my opinion. I didn't provide an opinion. I told the council what the standard of review was. Okay. I haven't issued an opinion on any particular fact pattern.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
All right, thank you.
So your claim, Mr. Collins, is that we cannot contract outside of our term? Was that what
Yes. Yes, unless it's proprietary, like if it's a cell tower that you're entering into or a lease or something like that with a company. You can't give somebody a contract after your term. We have a special exception in state law that you can do it for the police chief, the town engineer, and the DPW director.
That's for 3 years. Employment purposes, Mr. Collins.
So if you could enter into a 2-year contract after your term or like that, why wouldn't you just wait till December and give a 2-year contract? Why would you have to have a special exemption for the chief?
Let me ask you a couple of questions. I heard you. I just want to ask you a few questions.
Yep.
So Is there any difference between this and a 10-year tax agreement with the Providence Water Supply Board? Or, let me just go on here a little bit, a difference between an agreement for abolishing taxes with the receiver on the Hope Mill, or 30 consecutive years of agreements with cell phone towers, which we do have in Hope now. We have a 30-year lease. They're 5-year leases with a mandatory, first option to renegotiate that lease with that installer. Under your administration, under our administration, we signed a 25-year power purchase agreement saving the taxpayers over $2.2 million as it relates to buying into green energy. That exceeds.
That is a proprietary, I don't know exactly how to say the word, lease.
Right.
Okay, that's not a governmental action. We're entering a contract for an employee or something like this with a bridge. That's a governmental action. They're two different things. I guess the road you're going down right now, because you won't respect my request like I did yours 2 years ago, I guess that it's going to have to be, the town's going to have to spend the money if the people so desire, and the judge will have to decide.
First of all, let me go on record saying I requested that also, that you hold off, and you did put people on boards and committees after I asked you not to.
No.
So, we can bring the minutes up for November when you put Steve Otto on the Land Trust Committee. You want to bring those minutes up, Chuck?
You can bring them up. I said that I would not take the people that were supposed to be on the boards in January or February and put them on in December or November. Next month, let me tell you, no, Scott, let me answer your question. Let me answer you. Next month, you have to put on the citizen at the Rockland Oaks. If you go to do that, I don't have a problem with that, because that's a regular appointment, just like the housing was last time, or whatever, the land trust, or whatever we did. That was a regular appointment for either November or December. I didn't go and do this stuff and give somebody a contract at the end of my term. If I had done that, I could have done it for the building inspector and give him a 3-year term.
Approved months ago.
Did I do it? No.
Didn't Chief Randall have a contract that extended past your term last time?
Yes, he did. Because he's allowed by law. There was a special exception. Why would you need a special exception for the police chief if you could do this 2-year term at the end of your term?
Okay, this isn't a contract for employment. This is a contract to fix a bridge, which we need to do as a town function. Whether the town pays for it out of a bond, pays for it out of money we have in escrow, or we pay for it with this agreement, it's to fix a road. So,
let's put the cards on the table. It's to pay for the dirt that went up at the police station that's not even getting finished now because John don't want to work on it. All right? You want to put the cards on the table here?
We're not talking about the police station. We're talking about the road here. So
we're talking why the bridge is getting done, Mr. Amaral. Just because you're a lame duck now and you don't want to respect my wishes, feel free to vote for this if you want.
I didn't respect your wishes the last 2 years.
I know you didn't. That's the problem.
All right, Chuck, listen, we understand you're excited.
I'm not excited.
I would be too. I would be too.
Okay.
It's like we were excited, we come in and we hammered you out. I understand that that's what you want to do, and I get it, but it's a bit much.
All I'm asking is,
I heard you say it 4 times, so this is what I want to say.
Yep.
Respectfully, I heard you say it 4 times. You're becoming redundant now. So this was approved months ago. We've been very busy building a police station that's 30 years overdue, trying to win in a re-election, maintaining the town, and everything else that we were involved here. Additions on animal control and all of those good things that we did here. So this got carried over after the election, but as far as I'm concerned, this was approved months ago. And I just want to say one thing about the monies that you want to immediately run to the council when the power shifts on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in January, as state law requires. I think you're going to have, bigger fish to fry going into budget. Certainly addressing the school district that you ran directly into the ground for 10 consecutive years. That school needs revitalization. We have no cross-training within all of our town departments. One woman is out at town hall. The place is overwhelmed. We're understaffed in every department. We have a lot of things that should be focused, the new council, I would urge you and the new council to focus on the good things for this community that are necessary, other than your desperate attempt to point out the flaws by the independent men and all that we accomplished. So I would hope that you would consider paying attention to that, rather than, running to make a motion to spend money to fix a bridge that's decades past due, that you didn't know better to even look at. So I would hope that your efforts are used to better this community rather than, try to slander us for the next 2 years. So,
If you read the Valley Breeze, Mr. President, I put in there that I thought you guys did do some good work. I never said that you didn't do anything wrong like that.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting you did.
All right.
Okay?
Mr. McCormick?
Yes, Tim McCormick, 428 Trimtown Road. My issue on this is, you're right, John, that this was passed X number of months ago, but there was no discussion that I recall. Maybe I'm just not recollecting it, but I don't recall a discussion of obligating the town for 20 years in the event that we change our minds. And I can understand why the Vernacular Corporation would want that in this agreement, but you're binding future councils from, tying future councils' hands, which I'm not prepared to debate about tonight, but I am been told that that's
I don't mind a
fairly
multi-part
limited.
question, but if you have several questions, I'm open to it, but I want to respond to that.
But, so that's one thing, and I'm just concerned that we've got one council member-elect here who's already said he's going to put something on the agenda. I know that there are 2 others up there that voted against this. So there's a high degree of likelihood that the council-elect will take action on this. You're exposing the town to expenses, legal expenses on this. I respectfully ask that you table it. And I'll also note, and again, maybe I've misinterpreted this so someone can correct me, but the discussion when this was going through, was a lot of the discussion hinged on the fact that this was going to eliminate the opportunity for a landfill.
Yeah, it's in there.
And, well, this eliminates the opportunity for the Vernacular Corporation to manage a landfill. It doesn't limit their ability to sell the assets to someone else who could do the landfill. So there's no limitation on this being used as a landfill in this agreement. It's just not there.
I think it says for 99 years, right?
That's not what I saw. No.
Okay.
And there's no deed restriction in here? You'd have to have it in the deed, because otherwise you could sell the asset, and it doesn't carry through the obligation.
Yeah, it's going to get recorded on the deed. That was discussed all the way through this.
It doesn't say that in this agreement.
Okay, so if it's not in there, I will ask to further amend the motion that...
I think it should be tabled.
I understand
I'd respectfully ask that you table the agreement.
All right, I didn't interrupt you, Tim, so let me finish.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask to further this motion to add that language that I ensure that it get, the fact that it gets recorded on the deed in the land vault in Coventry. So would you accept that? You accept that? Okay, so there's more to this, Mr. McCormick, as far as I'm concerned. This bridge needs to get done. We are going to close a landfill that's on the border of where I live. It's not on the border where you live. And I think those are issues that are meaningful and mean something to the town of Scituate and town of Coventry, actually.
Well,
Okay.
in the future, I'll be representing the entire town of Scituate, so it doesn't make any difference where I live.
Yep, okay, no problem.
And
But so-
again, and I can just say, John, I'm looking at this agreement, and I see nothing in here that limits anything regarding to a landfill other than the Vernacular Corporation's ability to operate it. I don't see anything at all that limits their ability to sell the asset for a landfill. And again, I just think that it's wrong that you're going forward and you're entering into this agreement. You're almost locking down the fact that we're going to have to spend legal fees when the council going forward likely puts on the agenda to reverse this agreement. And I certainly hope that the Vernacular Corporation thinks twice before they start dumping a lot of money into this.
Duly noted, sir.
Thank you.
Matt Leonard, I'm the safety director for J.R. Venegro Corporation. I went up to where the bridge is right after the snowstorm, and it's not just the deficiency of the bridge. You even have a sign, the road narrows. And after the snowfall, it turned into a one-lane road after it was plowed. And every single car that was traveling eastbound crossed over the road. Cars that were traveling westbound had to either stop or almost go into a ditch and watch the cars go by. It's an incredibly safety hazard for your town that we're willing to resolve. I'm not going to promise anything we can't deliver, but I promise we'll deliver more than we promise. And I think, Councilman Collins, when you see the little disruption that we're going to have and the few trucks that'll be on that road, you're going to find out that it's a non-issue. You're going to have a bridge that's wide, that is going to be state-of-the-art, and a lot bigger than what you currently have, and wide. You have a serious safety issue, not just the bridge being deficient, but the width of the road. And I think you're going to find out that this was a non-issue, because we're not going to be running trucks up and down that road. We've already talked about a speed limit. We can only do it for 25 hours a week, but your entire town can use that bridge every single moment of the day. We restrict it. And I think when you see that, and you see the way that we're going to behave as a corporation on that road to the neighbors, this is just the begin. We have a lot of work to do. We've still got to work with the abutters. We've also got to look at the property lines. We've got to work with EMS. We've got to work with the police. This vote's just the beginning step for us to do that. And we are going to invest a significant amount of money. The owner of the company will be living in this town. He owns a large piece of property. He's invested in here. And you'll see what type of corporate citizen we are. There was no deal for rocks for the police station. I don't know where that came from. For this road, that had nothing to do with it. We do a lot of support for many communities that come to us and ask us for things. We've done parking lots in Johnston. If you look up the police department, we have built ball fields in the town of Johnston. That's what good corporations do. Citizens Bank does it, Allendale Insurance does it. I'm sure there's companies in Scituate that must do that, give their time and energy. So I think if you give us a chance, your new council, and you'll see the little impact that it is, you'll change your mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ralph, excuse me, Ralph Grove, 7 Howard Avenue in Hope. And I once again bring up several concerns that I spoke at the last meetings. One, and I agree with Mr. Vinagro that people have, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's the representative for Mr. Vinagro, and they have good intentions or whatever they want to do. Again, after the past snowstorm, it wasn't just a bridge that narrowed, and I want to reiterate the fact that that road was closed for no-through trucking, not as a result of that bridge, but as a result of the road being inadequate and too narrow. And as I traveled the other day, going down the road, there were 2 children walking down the road where I had to stop just for another car coming by. The road completely narrowed at a snowfall. There's been no discussion about that. There's been no discussion about how wide that road is and if it's adequate. That's one concern, safety concern. Secondly, when and if they are going to replace this bridge, and I'm assuming, Mr. President, I'm assuming that the entire bridge is going to be replaced and not just widened?
That's correct.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the last hearings that we had, that it was, the discussion was to widen the bridge, bring DOT approval or bring it up to DOT standards?
DOT specification.
Okay, have we seen any of these standards? Has it been shown to the council that this is what, I haven't seen any proposals advertised or shown. Is there going to be a road closure for an extended period of time? Are we going to be diverting traffic? So you're going to be closing Hope Furnace Road? I know they did the one on Main Street in Fittsville. They closed the road for almost a year. Are we going to be facing the same thing?
Yeah, so there's going to have to close the road. They got to take the bridge down, right? They got to demo the bridge. So I think maybe...
There's been no notice to the residents, to the abutting residents about anything?
Nobody said that. So let's do one question at a time.
Okay.
Because you got a series here, and I'm trying to keep up with you.
I'm sorry.
So first of all, I'd like to put on record that it was put on record here at the council meeting in recent months that no-through trucking was established to prevent the landfill from running rampant under prior administrations. So that's
Well, okay, that's
you can
hearsay.
go back yourself and look at live stream, and you'll see that for yourself. Okay? And secondly, yes, of course there's going to be a game plan. We're not just going to shut the road and say, rescue, you're on your own. There'll be a game plan established, and I think the safety coordinator from Mr. Vinagro, who works on shutting massive overpasses down, can probably clarify some of that for you.
Should this plan be submitted prior to the approval
Oh,
of this
it's gonna be
council
done-
going
that'll
forward?
be
It's kind
done
of putting the
administratively.
cart before the horse here.
No, it's not. But let him explain it.
Please do.
We're not going to create plans unless we have a contract, and then the plans have to get approved. We have taken down countless structures, bridges over in middle of Boston Harbor. We take down overpasses. We do that within 24 hours. This will be an enormous expense to our company because we'll probably do this, which is called fast track. We'll come in, we won't leave till it's done. So it may be something that we get done in 36 hours. You couldn't afford to do that as a community if you put that out to bid. This is what the state tries to do in some areas. You'll see Barton Street. If you want to go on the Rhode Island Department of Transportation's website and type up Barton Street. Barton Street is the bridge that goes over Route 2 on 95, where we took that down over a weekend. They built the other bridge nearby, brought it in, sat it down, and then we did the other sections, and that was done over a weekend. We had it down, cleaned up, and Route 2 opened back up. This is what we do. This is not a big project for us. We will bring in labor. This will be unionized labor. It'll be big equipment, and it'll be done to get the job quickly done, and so there's limited impact to the community. But there's still a lot of work to be done with this. As I mentioned, we still have to talk to the abutters. We still have to have surveys done. We still have to look at and submit all those plans and have engineers look at those plans. But we're certainly not going to do all that work before we at least have an agreement with the town. And then we'll submit all those plans and be happy to work with all the abutters and talk to them about exactly where it's going to go. And they'll have some input.
Sure. I'm not questioning the ability of the Vinagro Corporation, their ability to build a bridge, build a road. I'm not questioning that. What I am questioning is, what are they going to build? And is it acceptable to the town? And I can't see where the town would commit itself to accept something that they haven't seen. It really doesn't make sense. That's one question. My other question is, yes, I believe that the Vinagros are, they're going to restrict the amount of travel going up and down, the times, the speed limit, but that does not restrict for any tractor-trailer, private corporation to go up and down that road at will. I mean, is it going to be restricted to certain time frames for through trucking during different periods of time for all trucking, not just Vinagros? Or are they just going to be free to go up and down anytime they want?
It's restricted to those hours, and doesn't Coventry Building and Wrecking have unrestricted use of that road now?
They're not even in existence anymore.
They still have trucks up there. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been unrestricted by Coventry Building and Wrecking for all these years, so there. For everybody, yes. It's between those hours.
But again, that was for through trucking. Through trucking.
Correct.
And I just believe that there's an awful lot of questions from everyone that lives in that area, for the town of Scituate, for everyone, before we commit ourselves as a town. to agree to something like that when we haven't seen any of the proposed work, the bridge they're going to build, anything about it. We're taking the word for it, and you're going to approve something before it's happening.
But like he said,
disagree
he
with
can't draw that up and do the specs for this bridge until we have an agreement with him.
And again, the council is going to approve something before you get to see the specs? It makes no sense.
No, the town engineer is. Is Mr. Casali here? Yeah. So the town engineer is here. So Ralph, if it makes
I'm sure you understand my concerns.
Can I just get a few words out? All right, thank you. So if it makes you comfortable, we'll add to the motion. Okay? So once this contract agreement is approved, they can expedite the engineering, and we'll facilitate it with the town's engineer, so we could stop accruing $7,500 a month and make sure that the bridge that it seems that you're not applying any headspace towards, that is in poor to critical condition, gets addressed. It needs to be done ASAP, years ago. Okay, so let me add some additional language.
And there's a number of other bridges in town, I think, that have more of a priority than that.
We haven't gotten to those
We can
yet.
debate that all day long.
We're 55 square miles. We didn't cover every inch, but we...
Just to go back to the 7,500 on the school department's issue, if they went with the minibus, they could go across.
Well, that's something you might want to go to the school committee about, and talk to them about. But in any event, we're accruing some fees here, because they do have to take a different route. So I want to add some
And it
language to
doesn't
the motion.
address the issue of the narrowing of the road.
We're going to make it wider.
You're going to widen the whole road?
No, we're going to widen that section. All right, I experienced the close...
I understand that, but it's the rest of the road that's narrow. That's why it was moved through truck.
Ralph.
Yes,
Just let me say a word or two.
John, yes, John.
I experienced a close encounter myself. I lived right there with my wife the other night. All right, so I'm a firm believer in doing this. You could talk as much as you want. You can say what you want. At the end of the day here, at the end of this evening, we're going to go to a roll call vote. All right?
In other words, what the people have to say
but
doesn't make any
we
difference.
listen to everybody, okay?
John.
But I want to add to the motion because you raise a good point. All right?
Okay.
So the additional language I'd like to have, okay, Madam Clerk, if would you please note it?
Can I ask one question before that?
Yes.
Okay, there's something about the deed restrictions. Who's going to approve those?
Deed restrictions? Oh, he's going to record that in the land vault, yeah.
Is that going to be restricted to just one parcel of this property? Because there's several parcels there now.
Yeah, 98 acres is the only one that has grandfather rights. The surrounding ones do not. The surrounding properties do not.
So they could build a landfill on the surrounding?
No, I didn't say that, Ralph. Listen, I'll say it again.
Okay.
The 98-acre parcel has grandfather rights to conduct this type of business. The surrounding properties do not. So he'll deed restrict the property that has those grandfather rights that went far back as Mr. Patez when he had it. Okay? So the additional language should be that Mr. Vinagro has these, the engineering drawn up. We work with town engineer, DPW Director Richard Tucker, and myself to facilitate that, and we can get this bridge, which is really, I don't know why we keep calling it a bridge, it's really a culvert. We can get it to be made safe sooner rather than later. Accept those additional language? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ralph. Okay, Madam Clerk, a roll call vote, please.
Councilman D'Agostino.
Nay.
Councilman Amaral.
Aye.
Councilman Izzi.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Nay.
Council Vice President Payette.
Yes.
Council President Mahoney.
Yes, ma'am, motion passes. Okay, see, so right here, this is a possible waiver of attorney-client work privilege of a historical report submitted by Michael Marcello, Esquire, concerning the Providence Water Supply Board. Earlier in our term, the town hired Mike to do a pretty expensive report on the Providence Water Supply Board, and it is, it's quite the report. It's something I personally believe every single taxpayer in this town, or anyone that has concerns or aspirations or has wishful thinking of obtaining some additional funds out of the Providence Water Supply Board should read in detail. And I think that this, this report should be made public. It's all on a desk. Anyone, I believe, if we pass this, can go to Town Hall and obtain a copy of this. I want to open this up for council discussion. Well, first of all, would there be a motion to support making this document public?
I move approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council discussion? Any objections? No?
I don't have any objection because it was paid with taxpayer money, but I would have at least liked to seen it.
It's been at the town hall for months.
When I asked before, I was told some of it was a big box and they couldn't get it all together.
No, Mr. Collins. That's been at town hall for months. I took the opportunity to read it. I never got a phone call or an email or anything from you. You could have read that like any member of this council could have read it. So, I mean, I'm perplexed. Why didn't you make a request to read it? Are you in agreement with making this document public?
Taxpayer money was used for it, yes I am.
Well, we use taxpayer money for the litigation as it relates to the farm, forest, and open space loss, $490,000 of taxpayer money, and if I urge everyone to take the time to read this. I just want to, a couple additional questions. We use taxpayer money for that. Would you object to opening all of the minutes and the documents associated with those proceedings? I mean, they are 10 years old. We are now stuck with farm, forest, and open space, which is a serious issue, and I've recently learned that a lot of folks here in town were unaware of the fact that there is a farm, forest, and open space, and that we have settled on a per acre well-rounded number. The truth of the matter is we have over 13,500 acres, or they have, that is owned by the Providence Water Supply Board that falls specifically under farm, forest, and open space, which is extremely dangerous for our community, extremely. In the sense that I believe in 2017, there was a bill passed in the General Assembly that this is important. I want folks to know this. And that could potentially allow the Providence Water Supply Board to begin to install green energy, wind and solar, without town's approval, zoning and planning. And I'm going to ask James Safford to come to the microphone. We were supposed to go together to a meeting at the Department of Environmental Management a couple months ago, but I got caught up in the twister of this campaign.
Hi, James Safford, 1208 Hartford Pike. I actually asked if I could come down and give comment on that. It was on October 17th that DEM clarified the language. The bill was passed in 2017, but it didn't cover the fire code for them to make the change to the farm portion of the classification itself. And the danger essentially is that they would be able to remove, so there'd be no differentiation between produce and solar or wind. So your energy farm would essentially be, once you have that classification, if you already have it, why would you need anything else? So it doesn't allow them to immediately do that, but it legally opens the door for that argument to be made. It's farm, forest, and open space. It's a farm. Why aren't we allowed to do it? And they have 13,500 acres of farm, forest, and open space out of the 14,900 and change acres they have in town. So that's something that's on that tax treaty that we would definitely need to have removed. I know that it allowed us to get that up from $100 per acre to $11,000 per acre for value on that land, but it's dangerous with these changes that have happened over the last 2 years. So anything pertaining to that, even if it's 10, 20 years old, we definitely need to have access to that. The new council coming in next year is definitely going to need to have access to that, and everyone else should see it too.
Right, so the long and the short of it is, it seems that the state left it in the hands of the Department of Environmental Management to kind of brush up and massage this into...
They did. They heard it twice, actually.
Yeah, the authority
Finalize it.
for the Providence Water Supply Board, or anyone with farm, forest, and open space, for that matter, to install this green energy without...
Providence Water owns more farm, forest, and open space than anyone in the state. So a lot more. I think there's 900 acres in Scituate that are farm, forest, and open space by private owners, but Providence Water has 13,000. So if this affects anyone, this bill almost looks like it was done just for them, because this doesn't really help too many other people at all. It removed the requirements for the farms to do their annual crop reports, and they no longer need to do that. It just says that a farm is a farm with a couple of different classifications, and that's why it was reheard on October 17th, so they could remove the fire code issues that would have come up with solar or wind that wouldn't be there with a produce farm.
This is important. All right, thank you, James. So, thinking back, Mr. Collins, that report was in October, I believe, of 2017, and sitting there. But in any event, how do you feel about opening up these minutes and all the documents associated to that litigation?
Mr. President, none of this is on the agenda.
I think I'm just going to put it on for next month. I'd like to ask, if you mind if I do it.
I'm not going to question what prior councils did. They closed the minutes. I would vote against it.
You would vote against that?
Yep.
Okay. You vote against, do you support opening this up right here?
What's that?
This report?
The one you're asking about, Mike Marcello's?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Does anyone want to weigh in on it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Authorization of payment to Winborn and Summertree LLC in the amount of $21,875 for the appraisal and assessment of properties owned by the Providence Water Supply Board in the town of Scituate. And I believe during our budget cycle, Karen, we appropriated $75,000 for this, so we only used $21,000 of it. This right here is to begin assessing whether we could potentially withstand some type of state court challenge, or where we stand, or where they stand, as to the value of that property and all that goes with it. So would there be a motion to support that payment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the next one would be the possible waiver of attorney-client work product privilege of appraisal and assessment of report by Winborn and Summertree LLC, essentially opening this up to the public. Would there be a motion to support that?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Wait a minute. I'd like to hear from the solicitor what he thinks about negotiations, how this would affect negotiations as far as the city of Providence. Because normally stuff like this is done in executive session, isn't it?
Traditionally, negotiations or strategy sessions in anticipation of litigation would be done in executive session. I cannot comment on this particular report, as I have not read it or seen it.
So if you put out the appraisal and everything like that out to the public right now, you're showing your hand to the city of Providence, aren't you?
Yeah,
That's one way to characterize
bet on it. I personally think that a lot of this has been withheld from the public for a very long period of time, and they need to see it.
We don't even know at this time what this assessment says, do we?
When are we supposed to receive that, Wyatt?
No, we have not received it yet.
So don't you think that we should see it and our solicitor should review it before we decide we're going to give it out?
I discussed this with one of our solicitors who's not here and asked them to put it on. It's just an appraisal. Didn't see a problem with it. You want to put it on in November or December, I'll put it on, but I would like to see all of these documents public. Hey, they even opened up JFK's documents after 50 years. This is 10 years old. Farm, forest, and open space that came and went.
We're in negotiations very shortly,
Yeah,
and this is going to be used for that, isn't it?
potentially.
Potentially. So you want to show everything out there now in public?
I
Show
think
your
the
hand?
community's been in the dock for a long period of time over this, especially as it relates to farm, forest, and open
This has nothing to do with
space.
that in the past, Mr. President, with all due respect.
Yeah, it does.
Wyatt, would you weigh in on that? This is a tool that's going to be used, the information, possibly in future negotiations. Why would you show your hand before you start negotiations? I never
Well,
heard of it.
Mr. Collins, number one, I haven't seen the report yet because we haven't received it. And secondly, your question's a policy question to the council. That's not a legal issue. It's a question that's up to the council, whether you choose to release it or not. But not having read the report, I mean, I can't comment on its contents or what the report indicates.
Chuck, listen, I don't object to waiting till next month to look at this.
I would at least like to have the solicitor check it out.
Yeah, listen, it's a fair request, but there is a lot of people in this town that I spoke with, and others, that didn't even know there was a farm, forest, and open space issue, that it was a per-acre related issue. A lot of people in this room that I spoke to personally, I'm not going to point them out for obvious reasons. The community is unaware of what took place in the back and how, in the past, and how much money was spent in this process and how it unfolded. And again.
I'm not debating that.
All right,
What I'm debating is, this is an appraisal and assessment that this company's doing right now that the future council could be using in negotiations. Why would we tip our hand before we go into negotiations? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So what we'll do is, it should be in hopefully in the next couple of days. We'll read it, and I'll send you a copy. We'll assess it.
Thank you.
Okay? So the next, yeah, so let's do that. Motion to table?
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? Okay. So this next one is approval of the Manning Field change order to Rad Regale Associates attached to funding from $65,000 allocation to Manning Field from issued school bond. Motion to support that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that motion passes. G, we took out of order. H, request from tax collector Pat Rooster to schedule a tax sale for March 1st, 2019 at 10 a.m. to be conducted by Ruggiero, Brochu, and Petrarca as the town solicitor's office. Motion to support that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Request from the Scituate Fire and Rescue Engineering Board to have the funds made available to the town from the reimbursements received related to the purchase of scubas, which is, I believe, that self-contained breathing apparatus. Is that right, Chief? Okay. By the AFG grant, those Scott Air Packs, to be designated to the funding of the upgrade of the town's emergency dispatch fire alarm notification radio system. So let me just talk a little bit about this so we know where it came from. The funding for this, these Scott Air Packs were about $440,000. $330,000 of it was approved at a 2016 FTM for a $2.8 million bond that went to a variety of different capital needs. And the balance of it was approved at this year's FTM for $440,000. Firefighter Jenna Sharlin put in for a grant that involved a series of communities, neighboring communities. Is that right, Chief? And they were awarded in the area of $360,000 plus or minus. So we're approached by the Fire Engineering Board that wants to take this money and install it into the fire, rescue, and police upgrades for things that we've never had. Emergency sources, for example, the ability to shut the schools down in a moment's notice if an issue ever arose. So I'm going to ask Fire Chief Keith Brown to go on record to, this is a large amount of money, and I want the community to have an idea of these upgrades that are necessary, and they're for a good reason. And this, just for the record, that this is, I ran this by bond counsel David Ferrara, because it is related to two separate bonds. The monies were paid out for that scuba equipment, the Scott Air Packs, and these would be at the council's pleasure to disperse for capital needs. Okay.
All right. Keith Brown, Chief of Chartmanstow Fire Department, and I sit on the Communications Subcommittee of the Fire Rescue Engineering Board with Chief Robinson. Which one would you like to talk about, the radio box?
Can you get right in that microphone, Chief? We're a little weak in that department.
All right. You want to talk about the radio boxes first?
Yes, yes. Just
Okay.
elaborate, just give us an overview.
When we started to talk about moving the radio box receivers, there's one at the police dispatch and there's one at North Scituate Fire. Chief Robinson met with our vendor, who is a sole source, Signal Communications, and they discovered that we would need to replace these units should anything fail on them because they're no longer supported, they're end of life. So when they had the discussion about moving these units to the new police dispatch, they brought up the possibility of purchasing new units. So with the new units purchased, you would be able, some of the capabilities you would be able to realize would be two-way communication with anyone who installed that capability with the dispatch center. So from the town point of view, you could install that in any of your schools, town buildings, anything like that, and you would have two-way communication via the radio box system with the dispatcher immediately. So they could notify the school should the phone lines go down, or town hall, or anything like that, have some communication capabilities. There would also be a cost savings realized from doing that. If you made that purchase, excuse me one second. If you didn't make that purchase, it would cost $24,000 to move the old units to the new police station with no guarantees, no support. You move them, something breaks on them the next day, you're going to buy new ones anyway. With this proposal, they would be offering $22,000 discount, and you would save the $24,000 from moving them. So the total cost that you're asking for would be $94,000 minus the discount, so it comes up to that $70,000 number. And then you have brand new units. They would be integrated to the police department computer, so you wouldn't have the old, if you've ever seen the units, I mean, it comes up on a cathode ray tube like your old computers from 30 years ago, because that's how old they are. And, they receive the box, they have to acknowledge it and dispatch the call. So everything would be integrated, up to date, and it's kind of, we're uncovering these things as we're discussing moving them. And we feel it would be much more cost effective to purchase the new units with these upgraded capabilities for something that you're probably going to have to do anyway in the very near future.
Okay. This would also provide a redundancy. We would have a hardline communication.
With the radio boxes, you would not. You would be communicating with these buildings via the radio, same radio signal that the fire alarm is received by.
Okay.
So, if you had a phone line disruption or your data lines go down or anything else, you're going on radio waves.
Any questions for the chief? Okay, so I just want to put one more thing on record that's important, that Karen, last year at the annual appropriations, we allowed a $40,000 allotment for an annual lease, and that's built into our budget. So that this will take the place of that. This one-time purchase of this capital money would cover that. So going into the next budget cycle, there's a $40,000 built in that I think that you're going to be hearing from police and fire for an additional dispatch body in there. But I just wanted to put that on record that $40,000 is still there. All right, Chief, thank you so much.
Was there anything else?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion to support this and some additional language I want to put in there, it's important, because we're going to be crossing into a new administration here, that this $360,000, Karen, I'd like for you to put this into a specific line item when it comes in from the grant. Dennis Shallon can keep you a little further up to date than I, and that this money would be spent at the direction of the Fire Engineering Board. Chief Brown is a member of the state's EMA service, and Chief John Robbins is our local EMA. They have the qualifications and the background to see this through properly. So I'd like that into the motion.
Yeah, I move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Authorization to award a bid for special hazards truck. Bids were submitted. Marion Body Works for $535,992 and Alexis $548,500. It looks like 851, a little typo there. So, is Chief here? Can you tell us a little bit about this, Chief, and which one that you think would be appropriate for your department?
Yep. We received two bids, as you mentioned. The prices that you have here. Marion was $535,992. Alexis $548,551. After receiving the bids, we reviewed them. The truck committees reviewed. We spoke with the town's mechanic as well. The recommendation that we have is to award the bid to Marion, which is the low price bidder. They were also closest to the specified truck. There were exceptions made in the Alexis bid that we didn't feel comfortable with. And we do have a breakdown. I don't know if that made its way to you. We gave it to the clerk.
Yeah, we can touch base on it tomorrow, Chief. So what's the estimated time of arrival for this?
Build date is 330 days from the agreement.
Okay. We got an agreement ready to sign? Or?
Yep. I can give that to you.
We'll talk about it in the morning.
Sure. 330 days is a construction time. It's in line with...
They build it from ground up, Peggy.
Yep.
All right, move approval.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, so much. Authorization to award a bid for the installation of fitness equipment at Tasker Field, Village Plaza Way to Pro Fence Company for the bid price of $75.89. There were no other bids submitted to be paid from land dedication account. Motion approved that.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, so we have one opposed? Okay, motion passes. Authorization to award the bid for the refurbishment of Potterville Tanker Truck 51 to New England Fire and Equipment Apparatus, a sole bidder for $96,584.58. Funding will come from there'll be $80,000 coming from 2017 capital that was held over, $12,788 from 18 capital. Remainder will be paid from Potterville Fire Station budget. Also to issue a 50% deposit to New England Fire and Equipment to begin that process upon approval. Motion to support that?
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Request from Fire Rescue and Engineering Board to purchase, so M through P, this is, these monies right here, the $175,000 that was allocated during last year's budget cycle process and approved at the FTM. And these monies, John Robinson has been working on these to upgrade a whole host of equipment that is many, many years outdated. So these were allocated at the FTM. I just wanted to be clear. So we'll start with M. Request from the Fire Rescue Engineering Board to purchase 10 Pyramid Motor Vehicle Repeaters, Applied Communications for $23,123 to be paid from the account ending in 421 Fire Department Communications Equipment. Motion to support that.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. N, same thing. Request from Fire Engineering Board to reimburse Chapmansville Fire Department for purchase of 3 Pyramid Motor Vehicle Repeaters for $59.48. Be paid from the same account. Motion to support that?
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Request from the Fire Rescue Engineering Board to purchase 1 Pyramid SRV P255M vehicle repeater, pole mounting hardware, and enclosures installation for $19,133, also out of that $175. Motion to support that.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Motion passes. Request from Fire Rescue Engineering Board to purchase 2 TRX-50 radio box receivers with enhanced public address capabilities from SIGCOM to replace obsolete Vision 21 units for $70,104. This is a sole source and to be paid from that account. Ending in, I'm sorry, that's correct, 0310.
Move approval.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that motion passes. And the last one would be a request from Hope Jackson Fire Company to purchase 10 sets of turnout gear for $30,000. This came out of our 5-year capital plan. Is that right, Karen? That's it. Motion or support that?
Ending in account 80304, yeah. Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Pay bills. Get your bills?
Yes, before I go, Karen, you've gone through every one of these bills and vetted them and approved them, correct? Is that, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. We had a confusion our last meeting, and we were told that we just approved bills, and I brought up that you vetted them first, and you approved them first, and your department heads approved them, correct? All right, thank you. Again, I'm going to approve these bills with the exception of the SPP bills that are vetted through you guys. Both of you have to approve them from town treasurer, and they have to be approved by the town council president. Like I said, Ted, we have minutes from the SPP that Mrs. McCormick is no longer running that program, that somebody else is running it, so before you pay any bills, you might want to vet that out. Check the minutes from those meetings, because it's in there, that somebody else is now running that program. So I make a motion, we pay early town expenses of $152,000.
Richard Finnegan, Ridge Road. Mike Marcello came up here last council meeting and asked whether there was a policy. And he put a public records request in. Sharon Johnson said there was no policy for SPP for payment. Mr. Brzezweiler said there was. I recently spoke with Mr. Marcello, and he put his public records request in, and there's no policy. Now, maybe Mr. Brzezweiler wants to speak on that, but my understanding is that funds were paid without council approval.
That's correct.
But is there a policy, or is there not a policy?
Excuse me, Mr. President, this isn't on the agenda.
This is on bills.
This is on bills.
It's still not on the agenda about policy.
It is. No, it's bills.
It's on bills.
And the council stated that there needs to be a policy.
I understand that.
And that's concerning bills. That's concerning the payment of bills. This is what we're speaking about, bills.
It should be on the agenda as far as policy, to clarify policy on that.
Mr. Collins.
No, this is only concerning the payment of bills and whether there's a policy with SPP. And I'm perplexed. Is there or is there not? And who is the person in charge of SPP?
Let's let him answer.
As I'd indicated at the last meeting, there is a general policy regarding the vetting of bills for payment that you receive. Mr. Marcello did request it under the open records law. We gave him the narrative that came from the auditor's work papers documenting the procedures that we employ before you receive the bills. Any other questions?
Do you have a policy within that department?
The policy is the narrative that we provided.
Do you have a town policy in your department on how you do this?
I've said it twice already. The auditors have documented in their work papers the procedures that we employ to vet bills before they appear on your paper.
So you're telling me the auditors documented what you do?
We tell them what we do. That's the written document that we rely on historically.
That is not a policy.
Well, perhaps that's your judgment, but in my mind, that's the procedures that we follow.
A policy is something that is written down that you follow day to day.
And that's the policy that we've documented. To say that we prepare that narrative for the auditors, and they incorporate it in their audit report.
So you have a verbal narrative.
Look, we have a policy. I'm not going to debate it with you.
Is it a written policy?
I've just indicated to you that we've provided a written document to Mr. Marcello.
All right, can you provide that to us next meeting, please?
Yeah, actually, tomorrow.
You can have it.
You can email it to us tomorrow.
Can you give me that policy, Karen, tomorrow? I'd like to see it.
Can you copy the whole council on that, please?
Sure.
That'd be a good idea.
All right.
My question was still not answered, because in the document itself concerning that grant, it states that the town needs a policy for SPP, for that particular grant. So I think I'm understanding it's a town-wide policy.
Oh, we're going to hold payment on those bills, so that's, we understand, I understand what you're getting to.
It might be appropriate to ask him, is he going to go against the council and pay it again this month?
That's what I'd like to know. Are these bills going to be paid? And is there any documentation concerning the coordinator and what she has done? I mean, I don't understand how bills can be paid when there's no documentation. I have requested documentation, and I haven't received any.
Let's let him answer.
Any encumbrances that were made, well, first off, let's start. If Mrs. McCormick confirming Mrs. McCormick was removed from her position, then she would not have the ability to encumber the town. I paid bills that were encumbered by her when she was working for the community. I paid those bills after Karen and I went back at the council's directive, re-evaluating those bills. We provided the town council president with documentation that he requested. When you listen to the tapes, there are two separate issues, providing documentation and providing a review and then submitting those reviews to him again.
An approval from him.
Could I finish, please? Could I finish, please? I made a judgment call. These vendors were asked to provide services for the town of Scituate. Nobody is disputing they didn't provide those services. The state had indicated that the $70,000 of additional money was in jeopardy. I paid those bills to protect that money, and I stand by that decision. If it is confirmed that she has been removed from her position, then any bills after that removal will not be honored.
No, Richard, what date was that meeting?
I'm not disputing. I just want to see it in writing.
I'm just asking what date that meeting was.
I don't have that in front of me, but I'll have it for you tomorrow. I'll have it for the council tomorrow. The fact is that SPP minutes state that Sandy Stewart is now the coordinator of that program. There was no other vote taken after that. Sandy Stewart, on the following meeting, introduced herself as the coordinator of SPP. No vote taken after that we had another coordinator. So Sandy Stewart, as I stand here tonight, is the coordinator of SPP. So I don't know how Mr. Prisvila is paying bills to some other person when Ms. McCormick has nothing to do with SPP.
Richard, let's not confuse it. I didn't say I paid any bills after Mrs. McCormick was removed. I've asked the date of her removal. I've not been advised that she's been removed. If she's been removed, I'm not going to be paying invoices authorized by her. Give me the date.
I think you should have those dates.
I beg your
Not
pardon?
Richard Finnegan. You should have those
Well, someone
dates.
has to communicate them to us.
Well, then you've been communicating with her, obviously, because you've been paying her against council directive.
No. I've been paying bills that have been sitting in our office for a very long time.
Since last month.
More than that.
All right, so you mentioned something twice on the record, and I want this to be crystal clear.
Well, if it's already been addressed twice, then it is crystal clear.
Oh, no, what I'm going to say hasn't. You made statements twice this evening that you provided the council president, in that case, that's me.
Yes.
with documentation that I was satisfied. I received
I
zero
never said
from
you were satisfied, John.
I received zero.
No, that's not true.
Zero.
John, you have been offered
I want that to be
information
on the
that you have
record.
been refusing. You want it in a certain format. I've asked you twice in emails, what do you want? You continue to tell me, go back to the tapes.
I want...
List what you want specifically, and you will get it. But I'm not going to read your mind.
Ted, I told you we had a conversation at length in Karen's office, okay? And I explained to you what I wanted. You were a little unsure. I asked you to go back to the tape.
And I went back to the tapes and provided you with what I thought the tapes suggested you needed. You have been unsatisfied, and I asked you to reduce your request to writing so there's no confusion.
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable request.
You done? Okay. So, since that conversation, I received zero from you.
It's upstairs, John. You refuse to take receipt of it because it's not in the format that you want it.
Well, let me ask you a question. So, if Richard provides you with documentation from her own meeting minutes that she's not the director and you paid her a salary...
I beg your pardon?
If Richard provides you with the meeting minutes that she is no longer the director of SPP and you paid her a salary, are you going to recoup that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. President, I just want to make a comment that the town's contract with Buddha, we're the contracting party with the state agency. So we don't have a contract with SPP. A particular member of SPP was a vendor of the town. So I think one thing for business tomorrow is to determine the status of the vendors on that contract, because we do have an obligation under the contract with the state agency to meet certain obligations, and one of them is going to be having a coordinator on that program. That's not dictated by SPP, that's dictated by the town. Secondly, I just want to inform the council that there have been indications from Buddha that any unreasonable or unnecessary delays in payment of vendors that do work on this contract, Buddha did indicate to me that, any unnecessary delays in payment, they would look at this and it could constitute a breach of the agreement the town has with Buddha. So I just want to make the council aware of that.
I understand that, and I see here today that we have payments to Erica McCormick again for salary for October. And we have meeting minutes that she's not the coordinator anymore. So I have a big problem with that. And this council did not appoint a new coordinator. Problem with that. So maybe we should look into, appointing somebody for next month to coordinate this program.
That's what I was going to say.
But I'm going to approve these bills except for any bills for this grant until they are vetted by finance and approved by the town council president. Again. So let me see. So I move we pay early town expenses of $152,491.33. Early general obligation bond expenses of $130,679.52. Regular town expenses of $26,030.54. Supplemental town expenses of $326,574.45. And general obligation bond for the police station, $32,207.62 for a total of $667,983.46. And the SPP bills are not to be paid until vetted out by finance and the town council president, and until we figure out who's running this program.
All right, Madam Clerk, please do a roll call vote on this one.
Okay, so Scott made the original motion. Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Mr. D'Agostino can have it. That's fine. I moved approval, but that's fine.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Izzi.
Aye.
Councilman Amaral.
Aye.
Councilman D'Agostino. Aye. Councilwoman Frederickson. Aye. President Payette.
Aye.
And Council President.
Okay, I'm going to recuse myself. There's a couple small payments here for my wife's daycare and one of my developments. So I'd like to see these bills approved by the Vice President, signed off with Karen. I'm not going to vote on this. A couple of miscellaneous numbers here. Motion passes. Community participation.
Tim McCormick, 428 from Town Road. I can assure you this has nothing to do with the prior discussion. I was just calling because it's my understanding that Councilman Collins has forwarded a request to have a joint meeting between the current council and the council-elect. You've probably not had time to go through and sort out dates or things, but I just want to get a sense of your commitment to taking care of that sometime, and certainly be in December.
Are you asking me as president?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my position on that, Mr. McCormick, as one person, is there's 3 members of this council that have probably 10 years of experience, in some cases maybe more. They don't need a transition from us. They will guide you and your 3 other successful candidates appropriately. So I have no interest in that.
So you're unwilling to meet with us?
You're not going to put words in my mouth. I just told you how I felt. That's my answer.
How about the other council persons?
Ask them.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to me it'd be nice to get an update on the police station, some other things. We just want to have a conversation.
So let me just touch on that PD. We could talk about that in a minute, okay? Let's do one question at a time, and Wyatt wants to go on record here.
I'm just going to caution the council that if all of you went on record with a decision of whether to have a transitional meeting or not, that would constitute a vote under the Open Meetings Act.
That is a good point. So with that said, Mr. McCormick, I guess I'm responsible for the agenda. I have no intentions of putting it on there.
That's hardly the way to hand things off, John.
Okay. Anyone else?
Can I ask one question?
Is it related to the same question, or is it a new topic?
Well, no, it's related to the new police build up there that you've been doing, and I put in the paper that I thought you were doing a great job. I've asked, I talked to the chief about that, about going up and having a tour, and he politely told me you said no. So I'm asking you publicly if you would give the council people that are on the council now and the council-elect people a tour of that shortly.
Yeah, so what I think is appropriate, Mr. Collins, I've given that a lot of thought, and what I think, taking into consideration the time left here between now and holidays and turn of the year, power switching on, transferring on the 8th, is I'm going to button up all of the outstanding trade contractors, which I believe there's only one left, maybe 2. Get them paid, get all of the materials paid, and I'm going to create a report. Cost of construction ledger, and I'm going to turn it over to the council. Under budget construction project, and it'll be clear on what's outstanding and what I think should happen at when your new council convenes and you become a legal council when that power shifts on the first Tuesday after the first Monday. I think you should put that on your agenda for discussion. And if you feel as though you want me to, see the project through, propose something. But until then, I think that's what would be appropriate. And the main reason is we're so far along in there, and we're at a couple, some phases that I believe if they begin, they will cross into a new administration. And what I would not want to do is put suppliers and vendors and tradesmen in a position where they don't get paid or their pay is delayed or something goes sideways. I'm completely, I have no clue what this new administration is going to do and how you're going to handle this. So for those reasons, and I think that's most appropriate. So when you become a council on the 8th, you should put it, to have a council discussion and put it out there. Ask me what you want
I'm
to do.
also asking, as a councilman now, to tour the police station now. I think that's my right legally, unless Wyatt tells me it's not.
Yeah, as a
As a sitting
council member,
councilman.
yeah.
To be able to go up there with the chief of police and have him give me a tour. I don't see any problem with that. I don't think there's nothing to hide up there. I'm not saying there is something to hide. But I can't understand why I can't go tour it.
All right, so what I'm going to, I want to take the opportunity to get the trades done, get it all buttoned up. and-
Before I tour it?
Before you tour it. And I think that's a fair request. So you're getting what you want. I want to clean the place out. I want the trade subs out of there. And you want to take a walk through there with the chief? You can.
All right.
You want me to be there to answer some questions? It's going to be me, you, and the crowd? No problem.
All right.
I mentioned it earlier, too. I mentioned it.
Mhm. Okay, anyone else?
Richard Finnegan, Ridge Road. I believe it was last month that we spoke about SPP. Did the council get the certification for the coordinator?
We got nothing.
Any of the council members?
Zero. I received nothing.
I think this should be put on the next council meeting. The council was promised that that information was going to be forwarded to the council, not only the certification, but the minutes, the agendas.
You're not getting them. There's no minutes. They don't exist.
Well,
They don't exist.
I know some
There's
of them
4 years
exist.
of meetings with 10 people on the committees that they couldn't name one person on the committee. They don't exist. We know that. We could ask for them. I would love to see them, but I don't think 4 years of minutes are going to be.
Excuse me, there again, she has legal counsel and like that. I don't think the council, fair to the person, for the council to be discussing this when she has legal representation. Wyatt?
No, I just wanted to inform the council that my office has received some documents. They have not been compiled and put together to give to the council yet, as this matter was not on the agenda this evening. So I don't have a list of what documents received, but we did receive some documents given that inquiry.
I'd ask the council to put this on next month's agenda. And please, council members, study up on this issue and come here with some answers. I think this is very important. We have an agreement with the state of Rhode Island and the federal government that we're going to do our job. And I think you have failed the public to do your job.
I agree, Richard. That's why I said I agree it should go on the next agenda.
I hope it would be. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
My name is Alicia Kelly on Danielson Pike. I'm pretty sure none of you are aware of this, but Mayor Lorza is actually speaking about privatization of the Scituate Reservoir again. He was recently interviewed with Converge Rhode Island, and I can definitely pass on that article to the clerk tomorrow. If you could distribute it to the town council and hopefully to the next town council, because I think this is going to be an ongoing thing. He did speak again about the ongoing burden that the city has, and that if he doesn't step in and do a private-public party or partnership, that this is happening. And what's important for us here in this town is that he's going to be opening up listening parties. So I would hope that this council or the next council would want to have legal representation or town council representation at those listening parties. I don't know when they are yet. I have been tracking it, but I'd love to pass on that information to you and to the further council, because it's important that we have a voice at that table.
Do you suspect any of those meetings before the year end?
I've been pushing for an answer. I suspect you as a town council could request of the city of Providence when those meetings would be held. I assume they will be in the city of Providence. He had said a couple of different communities. I assume they'll be open to all the public, not just city residents.
See if you can keep me posted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we good? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
I thought it was midnight.